All talks of something existing after me or something that existed before me is nonsensical. My consciousness is the starting point of all experiences, and my consciousness is the consciousness of humanity. Collectively, all our consciousness put together is what we recognize as humanity. Humanity is not few bodies moving on a fixed planet. That is a visual representation of humanity. On the inside, who are we? We are creators, we are dreamers, we are imaginers. The world is our playground. The world is an extension of our being. We should never forget this. We should never turn these around and say, a human being has to do these things to protect his world. You can have awareness of it because it makes sense to live in a natural, aesthetic, beautiful environment. But there is a big difference between being aware of this and completely turning this into a negative propaganda. That is why the modern environmentalism is a completely negative movement. It is not about making human beings aware of their environment. It is making human beings guilty of their existence to a point where we have pushed human beings to such a deep, dark corner where we are saying everything a human being does is affecting the planet, which is not at all true. Just to give you a simple example, human beings occupy about 1% of the land area on Earth. 1%, that's it. We are occupying around 1% of 1/3 of the planet. And it is said that if you were to bring all the human beings together without any space in between them, you can fit all of them within the city limits of Los Angeles, an area of 500 square miles. And Earth is around 57 million square miles. Just to tell you how we can completely lose perspective. Human beings are not the most abundant of species on the planet. They are not the heaviest. The Atlantic krill is more heavier in terms of its biomass than human beings. Ants are more heavier in their biomass than human beings. There are bacteria, certain species of bacteria whose weight put together is more than that of human beings. And yet here we are sitting and thinking every human being who's taking birth is a burden on the planet, when in fact our population rate is declining. It's not growing, it's declining. And what happens for one generation if we don't produce any human beings? Human race is gone, it is destroyed. Human life is very fragile. It is not as robust. Few fundamental mistakes here and there is enough to destroy it. Now, what is it that is destroying this fabric of human society and structure? What is the most important thing? It is this negative attitude towards human beings. In utter ignorance, without knowing that we are so fragile, we are so delicate, and to say that we are destroying the planet. Yes, there is some truth to the idea that if you keep on digging the carbon from under the earth and releasing it into the atmosphere, the temperature will rise. But at what pace are we doing this? How many of our activities are contributing to this? When you actually look at how people are viewing global warming, the intensity with which they are viewing it, the critical eyes with which they are viewing it, you can almost conclude that it's a hoax, it's a lie. It isn't. There is some truth to it. But it has been blown so out of proportions, so unimaginably out of proportions, that now it is nothing but a lie. It is just an excuse to hate another human being. It is an excuse to hate ourselves. We have just used a simple scientific understanding of life and turned it into a monster. There are a few things that are an absolute existential crisis. One is a higher intelligence that completely controls, takes over the human mind, human spirit. That is the biggest danger. There is no doubt about it. Other than that, what are some of the biggest dangers for the existence of humanity? Environmentalism is one. And the other big movement is the this new idea, it's new phenomenon called gender fluidity, where we are questioning the very fundamental reality of life, the immutable, sacrosanct truth of human life, that there is a man, there is a female, and they have to come together to create life. Two men coming together, no matter how strong their love is, no matter how unconditional their love is, they cannot produce a baby. And in last 10 years, human population has grown by about 10%, the overall population of the world. And this community, what we now recognize as LGBTQ, has grown by about 100%. It has doubled in number. And what is an existential threat? This is an existential threat. This completely artificial, inflated movement towards not recognizing your own body as something real, your own gender as something real, that is what will eventually lead to the destruction of the human race. Because it is not natural. And which group is the biggest that is moving from being normal men and women into this community? The youngest. The age below 20, below 30. More people are shifting to this other section amongst our youngsters than the older generation. And what does this tell you? It is obvious that it is a complete misunderstanding of what life is. All of us feel insecure about our bodies, which is a fundamental reality of life. That is what life is. You have been given a form that you don't fully understand. There's not a single person who cannot look at his form and say, there's something wrong here. Because that is form. Form is a little funny. The two eyes, the nose, the ears, the way we look, there is something funny about it. Because it is such a fundamental emotion, to feel uncertain in one's body is such a basic emotion. If this movement is not stopped, it is just a matter of time before we will have more people identifying themselves as something that they are not. More people denying their bodies than those who have accepted. And once we cross that threshold, humanity is gone. You cannot turn it back. You have meddled with something very sacred. You have meddled with the very process of creation, the coming together of a man and a woman. You have denigrated a man, you have denigrated a woman, and you have created this new species which is totally artificial, which has forgotten the fundamental realities of its body, and it has accepted the whimsical fantasies of its mind as its reality. Now that is a force that can destroy the human race. Another thing is this idea of equality. Human beings are not equal. We are all unique. We are all different. If only you can see the spirit of a human being, you would not even dare compare two human beings and say, we both are equal. It is only when you look at human beings as bodies, this idea of equality comes. When you look at the human spirit, you will see each spirit is totally different, totally unique. Two human beings put next to each other, one spirit can be so lofty, like a mountain, the other can be like a mole hiding under that mountain. How can you put these two individuals in the same category and say they are equal? The moment you start advocating for things like this without understanding what life is, you are slowly poisoning your own roots. And then there is no complaining that our leaves are drying. The tree is dead. Humanity is dead. Who killed it? We ourselves killed it because we did not understand how precious this tree is, how magnificent this tree is, how at the center of everything this tree is. It all boils back to the fundamental understanding. What is truth? Do you have an experience of that truth? Do you have enough number of people who have experienced that truth? Without that, it's all a conceptual understanding of life. In a conceptual understanding of life, there are more chances of you completely misunderstanding life than understanding it.